What happens when you're fired from one of college football's biggest programs only to be told years later you didn't actually do anything wrong? That's the roller coaster story of Chris Partridge, a former Michigan assistant coach now working with the Seattle Seahawks. Back in 2023, Partridge was let go by the University of Michigan during the height of the NCAA's sign-stealing investigation. At the time, he was accused of violating a university directive not to speak about the ongoing investigation within the football program. That dismissal cast a long shadow over his coaching future and tied his name to one of the most talked about scandals in recent NCAA history. But now, in 2025, the NCAA has released a new report, and Partridge has been officially cleared. No punishment, no violation, just closure, and finally, a public acknowledgement that his name should never have been dragged into it in the first place. If you followed Chris Partridge's career, you know he's not the type to seek the spotlight. Even now, with the NCAA ruling in his favor, he's kept his comments brief and focused on moving forward. That says a lot about his character. He could have gone on a media tour. He could have pointed fingers or demanded apologies. But instead, he chose gratitude and professionalism. That attitude not only helps rebuild his image, it sets an example for how to handle adversity. In the coaching world, resilience matters just as much as X's and O's, and Partridge's resilience through this entire ordeal may end up being just as important to his future as any defensive scheme he draws up on a whiteboard. In a broader sense, this situation sheds light on the human side of sports scandals. Behind every headline is a person, a coach, a staffer, a family, dealing with stress, uncertainty, and public judgment. For Partridge, the past 2 years have likely been filled with questions no one should have to answer alone. That's why moments like this matter, not because they make headlines, but because they restore balance to stories that once felt lopsided. The NCAA clearing his name doesn't erase what happened, but it does allow him and others to close the chapter with dignity. It also serves as a reminder that fairness sometimes takes time, and when it comes, it can be just as powerful as the initial accusation. Now, as the 2025 football season kicks off, Chris Partridge is in a better place. Professionally, he's contributing to an NFL defense. Personally, let's rewind for a second. The scandal that rocked Michigan football centered on Connor Stalions, a low-level staffer allegedly involved in an elaborate sign-stealing operation. The story took over sports media, leading to investigations, speculation, and ultimately a $20 million fine handed to Michigan by the NCAA. Amid the chaos, Partridge was fired, not for sign stealing, but reportedly for speaking to someone within the program about the ongoing investigation. That move was seen by some as a precautionary measure. Others viewed it as a PR-driven dismissal. For 2 years, his reputation was in limbo. While he managed to land a role in the NFL, the question of whether he had done anything wrong remained unanswered. Until now, the NCAA's latest report not only clears him, but confirms he will face zero disciplinary action. It's a major moment, not just for Partridge, but for how we view accountability in college athletics. When Chris Partridge finally broke his silence, he kept it professional. He thanked the NCAA for what he described as a thorough process and expressed relief that his name had been cleared. And while he's now focused on his work with the Seahawks, you could feel the weight of what he went through. Getting dismissed from a job you love is hard. Getting publicly linked to a scandal you weren't involved in, that's career-altering. What's important here is that Partridge never faced direct accusations of cheating or rule-breaking. His firing was tied to a technical violation of internal policy, not NCAA rules. And now that the governing body has had its say, it's clear he didn't deserve the fallout that came with it. His return to the NFL wasn't just a career move, it was a fresh start. But it never should have required one in the first place. The fallout from the Michigan scandal left more than one career in question. But Chris Partridge's situation is unique. He wasn't accused of planning, executing, or even participating in the alleged sign-stealing operation. Yet, his firing created an association that's hard to shake. That's the power of narrative in college sports. Once your name is tied to controversy, fair or not, public perception can shift instantly. For Partridge, being labeled part of the problem had real consequences. It affected his legacy at Michigan, his future in college football, and his ability to coach without question. And that's why this recent NCAA clarification is so important. It doesn't just clean the record, it corrects the story. While headlines moved on to other topics, he had to live with that cloud hanging over him. Now, at least officially, that cloud is gone. What's striking is how long it took to get here. The investigation into Michigan's football program stretched across multiple seasons. Coaches, players, and university officials were caught in a web of allegations, denials, and speculation. Partridge, despite not being named in most reports, still got swept up in it. And that's the real lesson here. In high-profile NCAA cases, sometimes the damage is done before the facts are all in. A coach can lose his job over optics, not evidence. And once you're out, getting back in, especially at the college level, can be an uphill battle. That's why Partridge's current position with the Seahawks is such a turning point. He didn't sit around waiting for public opinion to shift. He got back to work, focused on the players, and let the truth catch up when it was ready. So where does Chris Partridge go from here? That's the question on the minds of both NFL and college football insiders. He's still young, well-respected in coaching circles, and now officially cleared of any NCAA wrongdoing. With that weight off his shoulders, a return to college football isn't out of the question. Programs looking for experienced defensive minds, especially those who value recruiting, will no doubt keep his name on their radar. But for now, his focus is on the Seahawks. He's working with one of the league's most dynamic defenses, mentoring young players, and bringing the same energy that made him a favorite among Michigan's linebackers. Whether or not he goes back to the college level, one thing is clear. Chris Partridge's coaching journey isn't defined by how it was interrupted. It's defined by how he responded. The NCAA's report also forces us to reevaluate how schools respond to investigations. Michigan acted quickly when the story broke, dismissing Partridge amid pressure to show institutional control. But now that he's been cleared, was that firing premature? Should universities wait for full investigations before making career-altering decisions? These are tough calls, especially when the media spotlight is burning hot. Athletic departments want to protect their programs, but that shouldn't come at the cost of fairness to individuals. In Partridge's case, the rush to judgment cost him a job, a reputation, and 2 years of silence. It's a cautionary tale not just for Michigan, but for every university navigating NCAA compliance waters. Because when a name is cleared this late in the game, you don't just fix a file, you rebuild a life. It's also worth noting that the NCAA's decision comes at a time when college sports are under heavier scrutiny than ever. From NIL deals to conference realignments, the pressure on programs to protect their image is at an all-time high. In that environment, coaches can become collateral damage. Chris Partridge wasn't the main character in the Michigan scandal, but he became one of its most visible consequences. That's part of what makes this outcome so powerful. It reminds us that not every person caught in controversy is guilty, and not every firing is a reflection of actual wrongdoing. As the landscape of college sports continues to evolve, it's stories like this that highlight the need for transparency, patience, and a better system for protecting people who are simply caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. For Michigan fans, the NCAA's final ruling might be bittersweet. On one hand, the program has paid its price, both financially and reputationally. On the other hand, it's now clear that at least one coach let go during the scandal didn't deserve that fate. Partridge was part of Michigan's rise under Jim Harbaugh. He played a role in building a dominant defense and helped develop key starters who went on to succeed in the NFL. His contribution shouldn't be forgotten just because his exit was messy. Now that his name is clear, there's room to appreciate his time in Ann Arbor for what it was, a successful chapter that unfortunately ended too soon. Whether Michigan acknowledges that or not is up to them, but fans who followed closely know the impact he had.